Hello, this is Murray Johnson from Asheville, North Carolina, and I teach second grade. I will be talking about the reading specialist as a effective leader, and starting off with question one: what could Margaret do to connect with staff to build trust? The first thing I'd recommend that Margaret should do is being open-minded to what the school staff had tried in the past and to see what worked and just to see what didn't work. And I would do this at a staff meeting. It could be through a reflection form or teams talking amongst themselves and then sharing it out. Basically, getting an intake of information and just listening. Because effective leaders should be open minded and being able to hear different ideas. And she could also connect with her staff by building relationships with them. And this could be done by visiting teachers' classrooms and offering positive feedback on what Margaret notices, or highlighting things that are working for the school based upon their data. Now, she does need to be practical and hopeful with the school staff. And while there was growth, there obviously still is work to be done. But she wants to come along in a positive way and present it positively to the staff, making sure that the staff knows that growth was made, but that obviously more growth can be made. And so just offering that really positive, helpful personality and being open minded to build that trust. For question two, how could Margaret exhibit compassion to build confidence and understanding? So Margaret can show compassion and build compassion by looking at the positive steps that teachers have already done in their classrooms with their students in small groups. And this will really help to build and sustain positive relationships with their colleagues. People need to feel like they can trust her. And it's hard to trust someone when you feel like they're not in your corner or like when you feel like they're not being compassionate. So, first of all, people need to feel safe and they need to feel that you have their best interests at heart. And it seems like Margaret does. But Margaret could also meet with teams individually and see what's working on their team in regards to the literacy. But she can also, look at the data for each grade level and look at areas of growth and look at areas of continuing improvement, and then point those out to those teams. I know that as a teacher, I've had my reading specialist do that to me in the past, and it's been really helpful because you kind of you're doing well in this area, and you need to hear some things that are working as to why you did well in these specific areas of literacy, and then looking at those areas where there's maybe not as much growth or there could be stagnation, but then also pointing out positive, effective strategies that have worked in the past based off that reading specialist expertise or with past teachers. So, once again, it's that listening session with also inserting effective reading strategies that work. But that's all done through a compassionate mindset and delivery where Margaret would talk with each team and really break down the what's working on each team in regards to the strategies being given on the data, but then also offering her own expertise and strategies to those teams too. And she could also give school-wide surveys and allow teachers to have input. I think another thing that Margaret could do that shows compassion and to build confidence is, put teachers on committees where they can examine the data themselves, allow them to have a say in the professional development. You want to be inclusive. And, if you're inclusive and you let people in, that is much more effective than rather just telling them what you're going to do. For question three, how could Margaret provide stability in the school's chaos? So Margaret could do a variety of things, of which I think these would be the most effective. One, she could almost have office hours for teachers to come to her with questions. She could have weekly observations where she could walk into classrooms and just give constructive feedback, and it wouldn't be like a formal observation. I've had this in my past schools I've worked in where the reading specialist or instructional coach has just walked in and they're just offering advice based on what they're seeing. And they usually start the post meetings by talking about what went well, and then it's a follow up of here are things that you can consider to do, and that's usually really helpful. It's not coming from admin, but it's coming from one of your peers. It would also be good to engage the school community and parents, make it a school-wide goal where you really want your kids and your parents and your teachers all excited about, the goals. And that comes from having a solid vision, which of course would come from somewhat from the admin from up top, but it would be filtered through the reading specialist. So making sure that Margaret was clear on what what the goal was being delivered down from admin, but that being clearly communicated to teachers and to students, and making it manageable, breaking it into chunks, so that teachers feel like they can accomplish these goals, and really being there as an asset. I think the best reading specialists are always making themselves available. They want to be available. They want to offer their expertise, their strategies, their experiences, and working alongside teachers, whether those teachers are new teachers, especially new teachers, but also even veteran teachers, learning from veteran teachers. I think a lot of times it's, and in this case, this scenario too, I think it's really easy for veteran teachers to feel defensive, like as if they're being critiqued. And I think a good reading specialist will recognize a strong, effective teacher, and they will uplift them. They'll share them out to other teachers in the building at meetings, talking about what they saw that's really working. You want to bring everybody in, and you don't do that by not opening it up to other people's voices. You do it by recognizing people. And then another idea too, I thought that would be effective for Margaret would be allowing teachers to attend their own professional development within literacy, or providing options, almost kind of like giving them a menu to choose from, because everybody likes choice. I think when teachers are forced to do things that they don't want to do, that's when you get resentment, and that's what Margaret would not want to do. For 4, how could Margaret build hope for, let's try again. How could Margaret build hope for success in teachers who feel tired, overwhelmed, and defeated? So this is obviously a sensitive area for Margaret and for certain teachers. But I think the first thing, the resounding feedback is have a listening session. And just be a sounding board. Listen to what teachers have to say earnestly and really authentically listen. If people feel that you're listening to them, that goes a long way. And then the next thing with that is following up with those teachers, checking in with them on a weekly basis. Even if you don't have all the answers, it matters that we are there for them. So Margaret should do that. She could also provide resources based on frustrations, and these frustrations, yes, are within the data, through the RTI process, like with minimal growth, but it can also be behavioral concerns too. Not saying that a reading specialist is the same as a behavior specialist or not, but recognizing why are certain kids acting certain ways. Is it because they probably struggle with reading, or is it a specific skill, and offering those advice too? Recognizing the triggers, and then observing those teachers in lessons and offering their feedback. That's useful too. I think some of the best reading specialists that I have had always have just had different resources available, and they're happy to share them. And they'll say, use or lose, to where, you're not being forced to use it, but it's always there. So, having those on hand. And then just really, just following through, and, recognizing their accomplishments too, because we want to build them up. But also being there for them as a person, because it's not just the job as a teacher, you're there as a whole person. So taking an interest in them. For number 5, what did I learn about this article that applies to me as a reading specialist? The main takeaway is that, being a reading specialist is not just being an expert in reading instruction, although that's very crucial to our job. But when well done, the role of reading specialist is to uplift teachers, is to support students with our knowledge and our compassion, and to be a positive role model, and to really understand that, if we're doing our jobs well, not only should test scores increase, but teachers should feel more confident in their abilities as a literacy teacher. And the culture of a school should really celebrate reading and literacy, because they feel supported from all areas by that reading specialist. Because, as question 6 says, conclude my thoughts on a reading specialist as a leader. That is what we are at the end of the day. We may not be an admin as a reading specialist, but we are a leader in the sense that we lead with literacy. We lead with our passion for it. We lead with our knowledge of it. We lead with our whole mindset of is how can we lift up students that struggle with reading? How can we increase the scores? And that means looking, diving into the data, looking at what's working, looking at what's not working, and being able to pivot and adjust and providing those research-based strategies. And it's also recognizing that if you don't have the answers, you're going to find ways. You're going to find other information. So being up to date on our background knowledge and our new information that's coming out. But above all, it's treating those teachers and treating students, as Margaret will be doing, as a whole person. We don't just teach the whole child. We don't just inform the teachers' observations. We look at them as a whole person, and we get to know them as individuals, and therefore, when we know them as individuals, we can provide them with the best resources and supports. Because, like it said, it doesn't, when you raise a child, whether it's, in this case, literacy, it takes a whole village, but in this case, it takes a whole school, and it means having that positive mindset. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.